Facebook and YouTube. Hey everyone, we are back on the live. This is Allegra, the Marketing Medulla, and I'm a business coach, marketing strategist, and business analyst. I have Miss Aarionna Hamilton-Lusane here. She's Coach Ari, the mindset expert and clarity strategist. So we're here again for our entrepreneurial cycles, the truth about business. And we've been talking a lot on different paths. You know, we just reviewed a little bit of our last week's conversation, which we went over, impact marketing, which is something that Aarionna covers a lot in her programs. For me, it's really being purpose driven. And so I'm going to talk a lot today about the planning. What are you planning for? How are you planning for it? And with what intention? And I want to hear from Aarionna on her take on like what she thinks we need to really focus on when it comes to down to the end of this year, preparing for 2024. This is where we all are. Okay. So I just wanted to introduce myself first and foremost. I'm going to pass the mic over to Aarionna so she can introduce herself, and then we're going to get into the topic. Y'all make sure that you share this live. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, okay? And we are on all three of those platforms. So wherever platform you're on right now, make sure you share it to your friends so they can listen to this live. Ari, I'll pass the mic over to you.
Well, yes, I am the mindset expert and clarity strategist for business owners, helping you to really number one, get your mind clear and organized, kind of what we're going to talk about today, where you can actually be able to take the action that you need to take. But it all starts with clarity of the mind. So really understanding what are the mental blocks that you're having from being able to actually take action, what's mentally holding you back from actually showing up in the way, in the manner that you need to show up so that you can get the results that you desire. And then that clarity strategist part is a matter of now we can sit down and really start from the top, which is the vision, and then map out what are the goals, what's the strategy, what do I need to change, who do I need to become, and how do I do that so that I actually stay in alignment, actually reach the vision that I have for my business, for my brand, and see it flourish. And like Allegra said, I teach a type of marketing called impact marketing that really is all about tapping into your purpose, owning who you are, and showing up and giving your gift to the world in a way that impacts and transforms lives with your brand or your business. So excited to talk about this planning because I've been planning. I'm still planning. So let's get into it.
All right. Thank you, Ari. So make sure you follow us on all these channels so you can hear about this conversation moving forward. But the reason why I wanted to bring up planning is because, of course, we're at the end of the year. 2023 is done. Okay. We are here. We are in 2024 mindset. A lot of us have already put a lot of intention around what is it that we want to do with our business next year. But I also want to kind of give a little bit more of a stretch here because this is what I am experiencing. Short-sightedness, right? Individuals who are not thinking past the year, thinking past the few years. Actually, one of the things that I just brought up to Aarionna was I said, in the pandemic, we had a lot of individuals I spoke to that said, well, I don't need to plan for the next 5 or 6 years because the market is going to change drastically and I'm going to have to do something different anyway. And I thought that was a really interesting concept because we never know what things are going to happen. We can never predict the future. So just because the market seems to be changing more drastically does not mean that we do not plan. And we know that in the first 3 to 5 years, 76% of businesses fail. We know this. We have already seen the studies. This is before the pandemic. And the reason why they fail is because of planning, lack of planning. And this is one of the areas. It could be also lack of funding, which also comes from lack of planning. It could be lack of intention, time, whatever it is that we kind of have fears around. And I think that's where, we can really kind of streamline Aarionna services in there because here's what I know about planning. If you're not clear about what it is that you need to do, right, in your mind visually, like, hey, in the next 5 years, this is where I want to be. You can't plan for it. Like if you don't know exactly what you want. And here's something that I thought was really interesting because I asked someone this question this weekend. And I ask this a lot. What does success look like to you? Right? What does it look like to you? And the answer was very jumbled. Like, well, it looks like this. And I was like, right, but that's not really a picture, right? You're like, there are things that we say about what success looks like, which are motions and attitudes and movements, but there's no real end vision. There's no thing that says, well, success looks like I have 5 homes, I have 2 cars, I have 3 thriving businesses, my children are happy, we're taking vacations every year, we have a boat, we have a plane. Like, visualize that thing, right? And so it was really interesting because what I found was that we're talking about circumstance rather than something that's sustainably there that we can visually see and plan towards. And so that's why I want to start with planning. So, in order to actually plan for the future, which is something I believe that people go through a lot of cycles in, because for the first 3 years of my business, I was writing stuff down, right? I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But I didn't really follow a process. I was just like hopeful. I was like, okay, I hope I get there. I'm just going to write stuff down. This is what I want to do. I hope I get there. And it wasn't until I really started to be more strategic about what it is that I really wanted. And that's when I started to really map out how I was going to get there. And so before you can actually know how you're going to get somewhere, you got to know what that thing looks like. Okay. Now I know that this seems very simple and basic, and okay, yeah, of course I know what it looks like, right? But when we really ask the question, I want you all to think about this while you're listening to this live. Ask yourself this question: what does success look like to me? And I want to give you a small little task. Write it down. And once you write it down, I want you to put it in the comments. And I want to see what success looks like to you. Don't be afraid to do it, because if you know and you're planning for it, you should know what it looks like. So I want Aarionna to comment on that, because she's going to talk about the mindset part of this. I did with the practical side, which is very simple, but the reason why it's so hard for us to get to our goals without proper planning is because of the mindset. So Aarionna's going to talk about that.
Well, here's what I'll say. I've been that person that the 5-year plan doesn't really come out for me. So I am on that side of the spectrum where it's like my mind is not, it's just not that far ahead. Now, what I will say is because I have children, I'm like, it has to be like, ma'am, your daughter will be 19 in 5 years. Like, you got to figure something out. If not for yourself, like, you have other humans that are depending on you. And I think as I get older, I understand like whether or not I feel like I'm built that way or my mind thinks that way, you have to transition into spaces, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, period. So, but when it came to my business, the 5-year thing, and this is what I believe, first and foremost, I had to understand that planning or dreaming or thinking or envisioning what success looks like for me and what I want my business to be in 5 years does not have to be elaborate. I think when people hear that, and I'm speaking from what I felt when I heard it, was, oh, it has to be like this elaborate 17 step, like da 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 da. And it's like, no, it's what it is to you. If success to you is, I just want to have my family in our forever home, we have 3 cars, I want to be financially stable, I want savings accounts for each of my children that could pay for 4 years of college, like whatever it is to you is correct. It's just that you can't not have anything, because then you don't have nowhere to shoot. You don't have a target. You don't really know where you're going. And I think that's what it was for me. When I would hear people say, well, what's your 5-year plan? It always made me feel like it had to be a certain way, and it had to be elaborate, and it had to be, like it didn't come off like people were saying in a way like, oh, it could be simple, it's just like whatever you want. So for a long time I never pushed myself to think 5 years out, because I'm like, well, I don't know, like we change. Listen, going from 20s to 30s, my mindset is different. I can't imagine what I'm going to be like in my 40s. Like, I'm sure what I want and what I like will change. And I think that's a part of it too, is that as you get older, things change. The things you thought you liked and the things you thought, listen, I was 21. No, I was 19 telling my mom, I'm going to be married and have a baby by 25. And I did. And I was also divorced by 25. I was married, had a baby, and divorced. I didn't plan for the divorce, but it was what happened. And so things change as you get older and what you desire. But for me, from a mindset perspective, I think why people struggle with it is because they think there's a standard or there's a picture, a mold that you have to fit in when somebody says, "What's your 5 year plan?" Or do, and so that brings a lot of pressure for somebody like me who I'm very simplistic. If you ask me like, "What's your dream car?" I don't have a dream car. It doesn't really matter to me. I just want something that I like. That's nice. It could be as big as a Bentley, or it could be as regular as a Lexus or a Nissan or like whatever, right? So some people have a vision for like, oh, I want to own 5 homes, da, 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 da. Like, not really. That's not I, I would like to. One thing my mentor, I love that she did is she wants to have a home. She wants to own enough homes for her and her children. So that way, when her children get to a space, they all have like everybody in the family has a home. Now, I thought that was brilliant. That was something I adopted. Like, okay, yeah, having a home for each one of my children makes sense for me. Like, so that they have somewhere to go. So, from a mindset perspective, and from somebody who has felt the pressure of like, what's your 5 year plan? And I'm like, oh, like, what are you talking about? I don't know. It triggered in me feeling like it had to be a certain way. And so I really stayed away from it for a long time because honestly, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I know some things, I don't know all things. And I think when people would say to me, what's your 5 year plan in business? I felt like I had to have all the answers, and I just don't. I don't have all the answers. I know things that I want to do, and that's just it. But I can't say like, is that the end all be all at 5 years? So I'm speaking from the spectrum of that person who has steered away from it because it feels very pressure. It feels very has to be, in a certain mold, and that just bothers me because I genuinely want God to map out my life, and I don't feel like He's giving me all the answers. I don't feel like He's showing me the full picture. So, yeah, I'm coming from that spectrum, and I can tell you from a mindset perspective, that's how it feels.
I think that that's a wonderful take on it because everyone is not going to deal or address things the same way. Now, here's what I got from what you were saying was that you envisioned a success based off of what you knew, right? And what you knew was limited by whatever your experiences were, right? Because if we don't ever, like, put it like this, when I flew out of the country at 16 years old for the first time and I came back, I had a different perspective. So my vision of success was totally different from the people that I went to high school with all of a sudden, because I'm like, whoa, look at the world. Like, y'all tripping. And so I want to kind of touch on that too, because there are steps to actually planning success. There are steps to planning. There are steps to strategic planning, right? And the first step I always tell people is define your vision. Define it. Because this is one thing to say, I just don't know what I want. That just means that we haven't taken the time to sit down and think about it long enough and hard enough and give ourselves time to really be creative. Sometimes our minds are very limited because of lack of things, right? It could be the lack of experiences, the lack of knowledge in general, or just lack of confidence, right? There's a lot of things that go along with why we don't experience more in the world, because the world really does give us a viewpoint on what we can obtain. And so when I think about what you said, Aarionna, I think that that's so valid for so many people, where we get into business. We start out because we never had to actually define the vision, right? Like, who has to define a vision when you go work a 9 to 5? You don't have to define that. You go to work, you do what you're supposed to do, and you go home. But when it comes to your business, let me tell y'all something. You start from the end. You start from the end so you can work your way up there at the beginning. So if you don't define that vision and you say, okay, you know what, this scares me because I don't know what 5 years looks like. I never even had to think like that. Then that means that you need to really start actually analyzing that. Okay, well, how do I stretch my thinking? How do I get the support to really start thinking different outside of the box rather than being limited to what I've experienced in life. That is a personal growth method. And so that's why I think that this is so cool about the truth about businesses, because Aarionna always says the business is building you, and the business comes from you. And so however limited you are in defining your vision is going to be how limited your business is as well.
Well, and you said something powerful there, though, right? It is based on how you're raised, your experience, and things like that. Same, like when I went to Paris for my aunt's birthday, it changed my perspective of traveling. Like, you can just travel. It doesn't have to feel like I'm a girl come from Compton, California. Like, it doesn't have to feel like, oh my gosh, this is just where my life is. No, I went to Paris and I was like, well, I can go to anywhere. Then I went to Aruba. Like, at that point, it was like, I still to this day, I took my oldest daughter at the time, and to this day, I'm like, girl, you went to Paris. Do you understand that most people in their life would never go to Paris? You went to Disneyland in Paris. We ate in the Eiffel Tower. Like, so her mindset is different. Like, she's starting out at a completely different, mindset. But when I went and I was able to afford it and pay for it, it was just like, it's just a place, somewhere you can go. So it does have a lot to do with how you grew up, but then also taking responsibility to what environments you put yourself in now that allow you to expand your mentality and your ability to expand your faith, really, to expand your belief of what's possible for me. And I think that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who are different from you, who have different experiences, because they have the potential to open up your mentality to see, oh, there is a different world than what I was raised in. There's a different my mental capacity and belief of what I'm able to accomplish. And so, because you just don't know what you don't know. So if your environment unconsciously taught you limitations, like this is all you can do. This is a lot of people grew up in you go to work, you work till 65 years, they're gonna pay you, and then you live off of that. Well, that's long gone. That is not no longer a thing. And I can tell you from working in HR at a college that I've seen people who worked for years older, and I always felt so bad because they got ready to want to retire and they were like, you got 2 more years. You in your 60s now. Like, you're tired. So gone are the days of get a job, give that company 20 years of your time, and then they're gonna retire you. That's gone. And so you think about what is the narrative now, and then how are you, like I said, it's the responsibility of us as business owners to say, I'm going to purposely put myself in a different environment that allows my faith, my belief of what's possible for me to expand. Because once you get around somebody who's done it, it immediately becomes more obtainable. Immediately. If you get around a millionaire and you look at how they live and how they move, immediately it has become more obtainable to you, consciously and unconsciously. You have immediately said, oh wow, like I can actually, that's crazy. I can do X, Y, and Z. And that's how it was with my mentor, which is my aunt. She has accomplished so much in her life, and she pulled me out of what we were raised in into her world. And now it's like, oh, well, I can really decide to do whatever I want to do and just do it. Like, because when you put yourself in different environments, and I continue to put myself around people who show me like, you can actually just live this type of life, and it's so different. It's like when Allegra came out here and we went and looked at homes. To this day, the one home we looked at, I'm like, that's my home. Like, I'm getting that home. I'm period point blank. I want it built like this. I want it to look like this. Like, I'm getting this home. This has to be my home. And it's like I said, it's those things. And I want the person who feels like you don't have the capacity to dream bigger. One way, and we were talking about kind of giving tips, put yourself around people who just have bigger or dream bigger. It will immediately trigger your mind and remove those blocks. But people are so afraid to put themselves in uncomfortable or new spaces that they literally cause themselves to live in a place of limitation.
I totally agree with you. You know, we all have limitless capacity, limitless opportunity, limitless expansion of whatever we want. So there's nothing ever really stopping us from, like what Aarionna saying, doing more, whether it's getting in the right spaces with the right people to take us to where we need to go. But I think what happens is we come from a place where we are conditioned, right? Like that's why cycles happen, because I thought back to some of my childhood, Ari, when I was really going through a lot of my healing process in the past few years. And I said, you know, I was experiencing other people's cycles while I was growing up. And those cycles also became my cycles. And those limitations also became part of my limitations in my cycle, because that's what I saw, right? And a great example for a lot of us can be what you just said, you know, the 9-to-5 mentality, which is a mentality. Like there are plenty of people that work 9-to-5s and do not get caught up in that system. Okay. That is a systematic thing. So it's very interesting that I thought about, you know, you just talking about that conditioning, that, you know, hey, this is the cycle that we're in because we believe this way and this is what we see. Our lack of vision and being able to strategically plan, which is something that, like Aarionna said, is not a one-way thing. So we get caught up in so many things of what other people are doing and saying, rather than leaning on our own experiences, our own life, our own desires. And it's because we really don't know ourselves well enough. Right? We just don't know what we want. We don't know who we are. So a lot of this, y'all, comes from a place where we have to be able to be bold enough to put ourselves in uncomfortable spaces that get us out of the routines and hence out of the cycles. One of those things Aarionna mentioned was the workforce, right? When you start a business and when you actually start building it, there are things that you're experiencing in your business that's going to repeat from your 9-to-5. And we call that normal, right? Because that's part of what we experienced for years in our life. So I work with a lot of startup business owners. So of course, in my experience, I know that this is a common thing because our brain just doesn't switch up overnight. We have to be able to condition ourselves again, recondition ourselves again. That first step to actually planning or strategically planning is defining your vision. When you define your vision, y'all, it has to be in alignment with your vision of success. So if you don't already have examples in your life that you've seen and you say, hey, that's my mentor, that's the person I want to be like, not who I want to be, but be like, right? I see their level of success. I think that that's something I want. Okay. See, something called deliberate creation, where you pull out things in life that you only want to experience rather than the things that you don't. So if I see somebody with ugly shoes, I'm not looking at them because I don't like ugly shoes. I like nice boots and high heels and stuff like that, right? So I'm only going to look at the things that really please me, that give me a visual and identify the level of success that I really want to be at. Now you can go above and beyond that, right? Because there are millionaires and billionaires that I've seen, and I've seen what they had, and I'm like, oh, I like that, but what's above that? What's above that? Because I see what they have, but there's always another ascension of vision that could be possible for you. And that's why I think that this is so important when you talk about defining the vision, when you actually lean back, and this is what it takes. And this is why I think a lot of times we get stuck in this cycle of, yeah, I'm planning, I have a plan, but your plan is not defined because your vision is not defined. So yeah, looking out 3 to 5 years down the road and saying, this is where I'm going to be is not easy because we don't know what we want. We don't understand what it looks like, right? And so we have to really identify these things. Now, when you were talking, I was saying, why is it that it begins with a cycle? And I explained that because we're conditioned, right? It's just what it is. Once you accept that and you say, you know, for the first 20 years of my life, I was taught this way. Now that I've removed those mental blocks, right, which is really what that situation is, you can actually start to think about, how do I want to plan? And that is actually where I think a lot of times we can get caught up in again, because that means that you have to take time out to think, which takes time, which take brain matter energy, right? And that means that if you're not good at time management, if that's a bad cycle for you, if you're not good with being able to be present in a moment, like I remember when I first started to do my meditations, y'all, I couldn't even sit down for 2 minutes without jumping up. So there has to be a level of process, really clarity of process. And most of the time, we start it, but we don't finish it, right? Because we see what we want, but then we get caught up on, well, I don't know the full picture of how to get there. So I'm just going to stop right here. And here's what I want to say. You don't have to have the full picture. Okay? It does not just plan what you have in your mind and continue to plan. And this is where I feel like we get caught up, because that's why thinking and taking that time and time management really becomes a crutch rather than an aid. Because if you plan for something 3 to 5 years and you start that out and you're like, okay, I can't think further than this right now, so I'm going to put this down, right? When do you pick that back up? When do you go back and say, you know what? I want to continue on my vision. Let me continue that. So with that, I always look at how we're putting that in our process when we're planning our businesses to get out of a cycle of not planning. And I only say this because I was the one that did it. I was the one in the beginning where I picked up the plan, I started writing it out, and then I put it down. And then I got stumped in my business one day and I was like, wait, where do I go now? Right? And then when I got stumped in my business, I was like, okay, so now let me try to make something up. Let me try to create something in this moment that's going to make me feel like I'm doing something, right? But it's not even according to a plan to get to that ultimate vision of success, because I never finalized it. I never finished it. So what I like to do now, and this is what I want to encourage you all to do, because I already told you, right? Write down what your vision of success is. And if you can't even write that down, then you really need to start thinking. Like, you really need to start actually taking that time, even if it's like time blocking 1 hour in your day or 1 hour in your week. I don't care what it is, but take out time to stop and to put in that practice for yourself. That's the only way it's going to be advantageous to you, right? In the long run, because the more and more you do that, the more inspired you're going to get, the more disciplined you're going to get. And next thing you know, like my situation, the business plan is done. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years. And here's another thing that happens. And this is why I feel like this is such an important way to really address breaking the cycle of not planning, breaking the cycle of not really looking at what success looks like to you, and not looking at how you want to plan out that vision. Because even though you're going to experience some things, I think, Aarionna, you said that you was like, yeah, I planned for this, but I didn't plan for that, right? Just because you plan doesn't mean that there won't be challenges or roadblocks. Right? How many times do you drive somewhere on the road and that road is always clear, but then one day you go on that road and they got the roadblocks up because they're doing construction, right? There's always going to be a hiccup. There's always going to be something along the way that's going to say, you know what? Now you kind of have to be creative. And that's why business isn't easy. That's why we take calculated risks. That's why we look at it and we say, my business is not exactly like anyone else's. So I can use the skeleton and I can use the model, but I can't mimic and copy what you do. And so I always encourage, whatever that level of success was for you that you identified in the beginning of this live, now I want you to go to the drawing board and I want you to start writing out how you're going to get there. And the first step, which I'm going to give today, and we can continue this conversation as we go along throughout the week too, because we might actually do a live depending on how Instagram wants to act. But when it comes down to, really defining, like planning that thing out, the first level is define your vision. And you have to make sure that when you're defining your vision, that you're not scared to take the risk of wanting something that you've never wanted before, desiring something that you feel like is so far out of your reach that you may not be worthy of it, right? Because we do that sometimes. And I want to kind of end it on that note, because as we go through, and I'm gonna start listing some of these strategic planning methods so that you can all kind of copy it and write it down, and then work on your mindset when it comes down to what Aarionna is telling you. Because you can start writing these things down, but what your mind will do is self-sabotage on you. So so I want to hear what Aarionna has to say about that. I'm going to check the comments, and also let me know what you all think about your planning process, right? Because sometimes we have to really be very methodical about, like, well, am I actually planning, or am I just writing things down? All right, go ahead, Aarionna. I'll pass it over to you.
Well, it's funny because I'm excited because that's what God had given me a structure which I teach in my membership is the business planning pyramid. And the first thing I say, because it just goes back to the Bible, write the vision, make it plain, so that they who see it can run with it. Though it tarries, wait on it, for surely it will come to pass. So when we're talking about vision, the way I do it the same way you did it. I just have my own framework of whatever, right? But when you get ready to write out your vision, the first thing I tell people is, I don't care how crazy it sounds. If you're thinking it and your thoughts try to tell you that's not real, write it all down, because vision should be bigger than you. And I always say vision should scare you a little bit because you can't do it by yourself. Usually we're struggling to map out and clarify our vision because we are thinking from a mindset of selfishness and singular, and I gotta do it, and it's about me, and I gotta figure it out. So the reason why we can't really sit down and map out vision is because you're trying to map it out from a selfish place. Vision is not about you. Vision is bigger than you, and you cannot complete vision without God. That's that's why so many of us cannot tell you what is success looks like to me, and because you're operating out of a selfish mentality. I'm not really writing down what I really feel and see in my mind because I don't know how I'm gonna do it. You're trying to do it in your power. You're trying to do it in your might. You're trying to do it in your strength. And you're right. On your own, by yourself, you can't do it. You can't. And when I teach this business planning pyramid, when God broke it down to me and he said to me, Aarionna, vision is bigger than you. And that's why it feels scary. That's why it feels like you can't do it, because if you try to do it on your own, it will never work. So when I tell people to sit down and define their vision, I say, I don't care how crazy it sounds, write it down. Because you get what I'm saying? Like, it's really getting your mind to understand that it's not going to make sense. You shouldn't be able to write your vision and be like, oh yeah, I know how I'm going to do this. That's not vision. That's a goal. That's a goal. A vision says, I really got to sit with this thing. I don't know how this is going to unravel. I don't know, but you know what I am going to do? I'm going to do what I can do now. That's different than saying, oh, I can make this happen. If you can make your vision happen on your own, it's not a vision, it's just a goal. It's just a goal that you have. It's a desire. But a real vision says, I got a partner. I got to partner with God, number one, because I don't know how. Lord, where I'm going to get the $100,000, the $300,000? Lord, listen. Vision says, I got a partner. That's vision. And if there's no partnership in your vision, it's not a vision. And so when you really sit down and allow yourself to come out of self and stop being selfish and be selfless, vision will flow. It'll flow because it's not about you. So all of a sudden you start thinking, I want to own a women's center, and I would love to open a school for da da da, and I would love, and all this stuff is coming out of you. You're like, I never really thought about this, but it's all flowing out of you because now it's selfless. And a real vision is selfless. When Jesus died on the cross, the vision was to save us. It was never about him. It was selfless. So when you get into that selfless stage and you allow your mind to actually flow in a limitless capacity, you'll start putting stuff down that you didn't even know you desired. I know there was one thing I said, I want to be able to open up a Christian based school for our children. Now, I don't have no desire to be in education or none of that, but it's something that's just in me. Like, man, I want my church to have a facility where we go back to the private Christian schools and we can teach God and we can teach morals and we can teach. I don't know nothing about the education, but guess what? I'm gonna have to partner. I'm gonna have to partner. I'm gonna have to partner with God. I'm gonna have to partner with other people in my church. There's a young lady in my church who has the biggest heart for children to be a educator, and she's been in education. Boom. So that's vision, and it's in me because it's supposed to affect people outside of me, and I'm just a piece of the puzzle. So when you come from that mentality, and like I said, I do a business plan and pyramid. So the first part is vision. Then from there, you can start making goals. Because maybe my goal is, okay, well, I'm going to connect with 5 people in education. I don't know. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm just going to network with 5 people into education because one of my visions is this school, and I feel very connected to that. I would love to see that. So, boom, my goal for 2024 is to make 5 powerful connections, excuse me, with people in education. Now, and kind of going back to what you said is that, and that's how God had to break it down for me. Because, like I said, I struggle with the whole 5 year, da 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 da. Like, what are we talking about? But when God broke that down for me, I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. Okay, so now I understand. Like, okay, this year, this is my goal, and it goes back to what you said. If we don't have a target, you ain't shooting at nothing. You ain't shooting at nothing. The goal cannot just be I want to make 10K in my business. Why you want to make 10K for? For what? Because if there's no target, you're just gonna spend it all. You're gonna blow your money. It's gonna be gone. You're gonna spend on stupid stuff. You're gonna go to Target and spend $500 on a vacuum cleaner. Like, did you really need that little vacuum cleaner that zips around the house? Like, and that's what people don't understand. Like, real quick, because y'all know I'm the realest coach you ever meet. I ain't got no nothing to hide. I sat down and did my budget last night, and I'm trying to find who stole my money. Like, who stole my money? Where's this extra money that I have at the end of the month? Sis, I was like, somebody stole from me. Like, I looked at my leftover. I felt like Jesus when he multiplied the 2 fish and 5 loaves, and I had 12 baskets left over, and I got on the boat and left the 12 baskets. Like, I was like, wait a minute. I know you said there was 12 baskets left over. We on this boat now hungry. Where the 12 baskets at? Because I know I counted 12. And I was shocked. I was shocked that I had not sat down in the last 6 months to actually look at my baskets. But you ain't got no vision going on, girl. What's your vision? Why you need to make the money? And I'm living proof to tell you that if you don't have a target that's bigger than I just want to, I made the money. That's the stupid thing. I made the money. I made the 10. I made the 10. I freaking made the 10. And baby, aside from some bills that God had, I don't know who took my baskets. Okay. And I want God to make him give it back double. Because who took my basket? So what I'm saying is, I don't mind being the sacrificial lamb because that's what my father, Jesus Christ, did. And he showed me how to be a sacrifice. I'm telling you guys, making 10K a month for no reason is not a goal. Ooh, ooh. Let's just sit there. Let's just sit in that. Making 10K a month with no goal, with no target in sight it's not a goal. It's a way for you to continue to be broke. Because had I sat down and said, okay, the reason why I want to freaking make 10K is so that I can invest it here. I'm going to put some over here. I'm going to do this with this. It would have went further because I had targets. But now I understand because the disciples didn't have a target with the baskets, they left them. They have them. They got on the boat there because you didn't have no goal. Like, okay, this 12 baskets is gonna feed us for the next 6 days, and when we go over here, we maybe oh girl, I'm getting my own revelation. You know I give my own revelation. Point blank beam.
I'm cracking up. Well, I mean, I think it's so amazing because, we started off
Mm.
with just really being honest about the fact that we are short-sighted. Okay. And I think that that is a natural cycle for us because even when it comes down to money, you know, like how many times do you get paid at work and then it's gone because we're so short-sighted in where we're putting our money? Bills, Target, Walmart, right? Like, and it's so crazy when we actually plan, which I'm going to talk about this before we get out of here of what we're going to cover next week. Because we're going to assess where you are. It's one thing to define your vision. It's another thing to assess where you are. And when you were talking about the 10 grand, okay, so real story for y'all. I've made that several times and lost it several times. You know, the fact that we talk about money like it has weight. If you are if you are making $10,000 a month and you don't really have a vision or a target, that's the love of money, right? Because why are you making it? Like it's just like, and I told this to my dad the other day. We were talking in the living room. Don't pass out, Ari. We were talking in the living room, and I said to him, because I get revelations in the
I'm
middle
gonna
of
need deliverance after this. Okay, I'm about to go. I'm gonna get deliverance after this.
No, seriously, because listen, I had a moment myself I'm sharing the gifts of the spirit, right? So I'm doing this on my IG channel. I have a subscription on Instagram. Y'all follow me over there because I'm always learning about me. Okay, like everybody else can live their life. I'm going to learn about Allegra. And what I found about me is that I have several gifts that I'm not using. And how can I teach you how to use your gifts to make money and I'm not, right? Like I was just looking at my theme on the website, like it says right there, use your gifts to make money, and I'm not even using all of them. So I had this revelation, and I was talking to my dad, and I was just really like thinking about how we were having a conversation about work, and like I'm the only one in my family right now that has businesses without working a 9-to-5 job. So it's it's just like I'm the oddball out, right? And they don't own businesses either. Like my brother, he does fitness too, but they don't actually like operate and own the business. So their thinking and their mind frame and the way that they move is different. But I was having a conversation, right? And the way my dad said something, I said, that's like the love of money, right? And it just kind of hit me, like it keeps hitting me in the middle of conversations, because we've been so conditioned to value money over the why. like why are you making money? And so I really want to I really want to lean down into this. So we're going to assess where you are by identifying exactly what your vision is outside of I got to pay my bills, outside of I got debt, outside of, because these are things that keep you distracted, right? Like even when you make the 10 grand, like I've made over time and time again, it wasn't until I sat down and made a real plan with that 10 grand that it didn't go that fast. It wasn't until I said, you know what, this money can't go to Tarjay because I have to use it for an investment to make more money. So the immediate short-sighted needs that I had at that moment were forbidden from then on out. And that's where that's where I want all of us to be. I want us all to be on a long-term vision basis where you're not thinking about what you got to do right now, how your life is right now, right? I mean, yes, live in the moment, be present, enjoy your life, but don't make all of your decisions based off of your situation. Okay, don't plan based off of where you think you are. And make sure that you really stretch yourself to identify all of the wilderness and all of the creativity that God has blessed you with. I literally turn around and I think about the fact that there's no lack of ideas. I get people all the time. They're like, yeah, I got this idea. I got that idea. Like y'all don't have no lack of ideas. But when it comes down to planning that thing, that takes structure. It takes real, like, I want this. And in order for you to really feel good about the I want this, okay, and not be so concerned about the exchange, which is right now the money. What I know for a fact, because I'm a living witness and a testimony to it, God will give you everything you need. Everything you need. There's no like the crazy part is that we create the lack. So we're talking about things that we don't want, and we get more of it. So I just so I want to stop there because we do have to continue this conversation next week, and we're going to talk about assessing where you are in this process of defining your vision. I'm going to bring up the SWOT analysis. Some of us know what it is, and some of us don't. But Ari, do you have anything to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, real life. Maybe deliverance. You said God will give you everything you need. We create the lack. And that is so, so true. I experienced it last night. Baby, you've been
What?
creating. I did. I said that. I was like, okay, I got to get my budget together for 2024. Da, 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 da. And like I said, I don't know who stole my 12 baskets of overflow. I'm going to find who's going to give it. The thief got to give it back. But we create the lack because there's no lack in God. So that right there is so powerful. Goes with that scripture. I'm probably going to go do a live on this whole scripture and this whole breakdown because we need deliverance before 2024. Because what's happening is God is really trying to say, like, I have prosperity in alignment for y'all. Like, I have wealth. We call it ocean wealth on my side of the world, like where it doesn't stop. There's no end to it. It's because he's a limitless God. So he has these streams and these ocean wealth that doesn't run out because, like you said, there's no lack in him. There's none of this. So I'm gonna try to go live on IG. We'll see. But this is what I will say. Um couple two things, and I say this a lot. Surround yourself with people who are having these types of conversations if you find yourself struggling mentally to connect with this type of conversation, right? Because if you put yourself around those people, you'll start to talk. Like that's why the Bible says, watch who you run with, who you connected with, because it's going to start show up in you. So that means that it could both be a detriment or it could be an empowerment. It could be a good thing for you. But the Bible says, watch the company you keep because you gonna be like who you run around. So number one, stop cutting yourself short from connecting with people who will help you to expand who you are. That's growth. That's number one. Number two, if you're struggling mentally, I want you to really sit down and just write what comes to mind. Sometimes don't not allowing yourself to even feel limitations. So there is no limit. I just want you to write what comes to mind. Don't think about what's crazy. Don't think about what's possible. Don't think about what you're capable of doing. Like legit, whatever comes to mind, put it on paper. Because from a mindset perspective, you have to practice what it feels like to be limitless. Because everything teaches us limits. There's a limit. There's a limit. And while there are boundaries to keep us safe, we don't have limits. We have things that keep us safe. But we've taken that and made it extreme to where we operate in a very limited capacity when we were created to be limitless creature. So I think for me, if we're giving just kind of one kind of thing the person can do, sit down and just let your mind go. Let yourself experience what it feels like. Go back to Barney days to just let your imagination just roll. Like if there was nothing holding me back. No, don't think about dollar finances. What could you write if there was nothing holding you back? And here's the great thing about the biblical principle for business is that he said when you write the vision, the reason why he said write the vision was because a thought does not become real until you put it down on paper. And I did a live one time talking about, are you a dreamer or are you a visionary? Because dreamers, they just keep it all in their head. That's it. Like I'm keeping it in my head. And a lot of people feel like they have a vision, but if it never hit paper, if it never took life, like giving it life, then it never became anything other than a dream. Visionaries sit down and take what they're thinking, not what they're dreaming, and make it a reality.
Wow. So, with that being said, listen, I just think that this was a great live for, just really kind of setting the stage to start thinking long term. Being short sighted is listen, y'all, we're not even created to be like that. I think that we just live in a society that's actually blocked us so hard that we can't receive the way we need to. Um, I think we have to be very willing to go through a process to what we call in biblical terms pruning, right? Because God does prune us, and that's hard. It's hard. It's hard to actually, you know, this is cognitive thinking. This is you stretching your brain outside of, you know, and here there are things that will hold you back if you don't pay attention, right? Sometimes we have, you know, a lack of confidence, a lack of knowledge, a lack of, you know, and then we just sit in the lack, and that becomes a cycle rather than saying, I don't have that in my toolbox, so let me get it. If I don't have the knowledge, let me get it. If I don't have the resources, let me get it. Right? Like there is nothing stopping us from really putting forth our best foot to make our vision count. So thank you for sharing that, Aarionna, because I do believe that, you know, we are visionaries because God gives us the vision, right? And we have to write it down and make that thing plain and identify what it means to us and how we feel about it. Now, feelings are foolish. So don't think that just because it makes you feel uncomfortable with it, that's a way to run away from it. It's just a way that your body's responding to tell you that this is not what you're used to. So I really want to encourage you all to start really thinking about that level of success, about your vision. And then we're going to discuss how to assess where you are with it next week and make it your homework this week, right? Write it down. Right. And then start really being bewildered. Like Aarionna's talking about, let your brain just kind of go and don't have limitations. And when you feel like I'm struggling a little bit, take a break, go take a walk outside, smell the fresh air, right? Because your brain needs oxygen. Your brain needs to be fed. Don't try and do this type of work on an empty stomach. Drink lots of water. Like these are things that I feel contribute a lot to us not being productive. And I wanted to just mention that before we get out of this live, because it's great to do these things that we're telling you to do. But I want you all to be considerable to the rest of your body as well. Okay. Or considerate. That's not even a word. I don't think that goes with that sentence. All right, y'all. Let's get out of here. Y'all have an amazing day. We will see you back here next week. And also, if you need to connect with us, Aarionna is going to drop her link. She has a membership. She also works one-on-one with you. I definitely will give you the practical measures to take your business from start to finish, making sure you have resources. And of course, make sure you follow me on my new IG channel because I really kind of am enjoying this whole journey. I'm sharing the gifts of the spirit, which Aarionna knows very well. But listen, I am listing each and every one of them. I'm giving you scripture on where it's located in the Bible. And I'm also sharing all of my meal prep recipes. So y'all follow me on IG. And I'm like super excited about my new channel, y'all. Y'all follow me on IG. But most importantly, if you need me as a business coach, I'm here for you as well. All right. Thank you, Ari. Love you so much, sis. Love y'all as well. We're out of here.